Tejas. Can you all hear me? Okay, great, thank you. So, my journey with this whole project started way back in early 1990s. When one day my eldest brother came home and he was really upset. And we asked him what happened. So he was like, okay, I went on my bike to the school and someone stole my bike. Okay, and then he was really upset for the next few days. And one certain day, he was actually going out and saw a boy riding the bike, and he was like, hey, that looks like my bike. And he stopped the guy. He said, hey, this is my bike. And the sudden response that he got from the boy is like, oh, it's yours? Yeah, take it. and I know that we all wouldn't have been so fortunate, to get a bike. So, just to poll, how many of you have a bike or love riding a bike? Okay. Anytime your bike is stolen, or you know someone whose bike is stolen? Okay, quite many. So this is where the study began, and when so what happened is with this whole context of first time I encountered this problem way back in 1990, and then when last year I would say 2014 sometime when I was actually came to US to pursue my master's in analytics in Arizona. So that's the time I found a friend. His name is Raj. So he was doing his second degree in the college, and he was like, hey, I lost my 7 bikes. I'm like, are you serious about it? 7 bikes? So he said, yeah, 7 bike. And I said, how do you commute now? So he's like, do I have a choice? I just walk and come to college every day. So, and I found a second friend. He said, okay, his name is Raj. He's like, second bike stolen. And I was like, okay, what's happening? And then the third one, George, his take was, he started coming on a truck. He said, I can't afford to lose another bike, so I'll start coming in truck. And that's the scenario I came across. And that's what I started thinking. I have a different background, as you can see. Not that I want to go into detail in that. I spent many years in contact centers, human resources, did strategic consulting for external clients. I had a good load of education, but still wanted to study more. So came for another master's here and did it in analytics. And that's when I wanted to see that, hey, can I really solve this problem and at least do my bit on giving some inputs on this problem? So I said, yes, why not? And that's where this whole project started. And this is the situation was in one of our business school building. As you can see, one of the students actually carrying the bike inside the building. So you can see that's the left one of my friend. And the right one is another, like a local advertisement on the Facebook community. You can see, the pain behind when people put such ads and they're losing their bikes. So I was like, okay, let's really do something about it. And that's when I thought, okay, let's build some background like we do in all our client projects. So let's understand how big is the problem. And when I started looking at it, looking at the data, so as you can see that on an average annually 490 bikes, around 160,000 were stolen only in the campus, like in Arizona State University. And when I started looking at historical data, how big is the problem in the last 5 years, I figured out that 2,500 bikes, around $750,000. And what was more surprising, when I spoke with the police departments in Arizona, they mentioned that 45% of the cases were never reported on an average. So you can see that this is actually a $1 million problem only in Arizona that I looked at. And how big it could be in US, you all can figure out. Now, what was the recovery rate when I asked the police department and looked at the data? And this has also been when I read a lot of articles online. On an average, the recovery rate of bikes is only 4 to 5%. So with this background, I started going further that, okay, so let's make it a problem. It was about, I had no sponsor, I had no stakeholders. It was about, I thought this could be a problem. I could find some stakeholders, sponsors, and work through it, So that's when we started looking at the population. And the first student population has a distribution of students in different campuses. And we knew that there's one campus named as Tempe. That could be our focus area. So we said, okay, let's work on Tempe. And then we also looked at the valuation of the bikes which were stolen, and we found it was very proportionate or much higher in the Tempe campus. You can see that one. And then as a background, we figured out that, okay, are there any specific monthly trends when the bike's been stolen? So we found, I mean, quite obvious, as you can see, the fall and the spring is when the bikes were stolen, because new students coming in, not much awareness about the system. So that's where the bikes were stolen as a trend, as we could figure out to begin our story. And here on we decided that, okay, I mean, we can't boil the ocean, but let's focus on one area, and which is one campus as Tempe, and we'll try to study that further in the following slides. So that's where that was the background. Now, it was important because we never had any stakeholders, no sponsor, and I started reaching out to different departments to get the data. It was important to have a strong methodology because, like the one Jason also referred, there has to be a life cycle in the way we report to our clients on how our project is progressing. So it was important for us to set the methodology, find out the key factors that we also call dimensions or variables which were involved in the bikes being stolen. Then finding out scenarios. In our case, our client didn't know what were the scenarios, so we had to help them out to find the scenarios that they look at, put recommendations, and finally, sum up and put a study out of it. And that's what you're looking at. So this is the methodology. I mean, quite close, but I really love this methodology, and I often use it in almost all my data science projects. This methodology is CRISP DM. Recently, there was a survey or poll done in I think, in KD Nuggets. I think this came up like one of the topmost methodology among many others that could be used. And I really use this slide, I can tell you that, where you can see the progress of different things I did in the project with a timeline at a high level. So this was used to keep up with the stakeholders in terms of what we were doing, in terms of methodology. Now, when we started talking to various people who were involved around the system of managing bikes in the campus, parking, transit, urban planning, the police department, we started getting inputs on what could be the key variables which could impact the bike theft. So the first one, you can see geography. Now, around which buildings the bikes are stolen, around which parkings. I mean, what are the coordinates we are referring over here? What time of the day are the bikes been stolen? Are the property or the bike value is more expensive or less expensive? Which type of bikes are stolen more? And then there were many others also we came across, like environment. Are they on a rainy day, sunny day in Arizona when the bikes were stolen? What was the locking mechanism used when the bike was stolen? U-lock, Y-lock, or no-lock? so that's a locking mechanism, and criminal profile also. I mean, this was a very exhaustive subject, so we decided with a given time frame we had, we'll focus on only the top 3, and that's what I will be actually sharing some insights that we found in this study. So, starting on, I mean, when we started talking to the police department and urban planning, parking and transit, slowly we started unfolding the key problems that they wanted to discover and needed our insights on. So the first one was the police department asked, hey, I mean, I have a limited workforce, and I cannot have everyone around the whole campus or everywhere. Can you tell me what would be the hotspots where I should have my people more? And these trends and patterns definitely change over the time, as you all can see. So we said, yeah, why not? So with the data, and again I'll go with the 80-20 code that Jason mentioned, that 80% of the time that we started in September and up to Jan, we were just preparing the data, and once we clean the data, we told the police, okay, see, this is the map of the campus, and you can see the hotspots where most of the bikes have been stolen right now. So they're like, wow, I mean, now we know at least where we can be. But, I mean, the client but is always demanding. I mean, they said, okay, you told us this much, which hotspots, but still, I mean, it's a 24-hour cycle. Can you be more specific and tell us which slot we should be there? So the thief is actually waiting there, catch me. So we said, okay, because we have the data, why don't we do that? So we actually took this to another level of detail. We said, okay, we will tell you the time spots in terms of when most of the bikes been stolen and from which buildings, because there are hundreds of buildings in the campus, and we told, okay, we'll give you the top 10, 12 buildings, and we'll tell you the which spots there are most likelihood that the bike would be stolen if it's parked there. So this chart, we could actually show them that, okay, on a Monday, or on this specific slot, the basement building had the highest probability of getting stolen. So this was like a key for them to know where they have to be at what time. So this was about the building and about daytime. And then they were like, okay, I got this dimension. How about you tell me the top, because hundreds of buildings, how about you tell us our top 10 buildings where most of the valued bikes been stolen? We were like, okay, sure, why not? We'll tell you that also. So this was, we did like by the valuation of the bikes, we said that these are the top 10 buildings in the campus where you lost like the 40% of the valuation of the bike. So maybe these top 10 buildings, you have to do something different. Else, that's where you can make the largest impact. Like again, I would say a Pareto Principle. So this is all, came up on the first scenario where police asked about, okay, tell us about hotspots, tell us about the time window, tell us about the top 10 buildings. So that was the first scenario we came across. Now, the situation went further on because the police got first input on that. Then we got in touch with the urban planning team and they asked us, okay, we have a concept of a valet and a secured storage. Valet is, that's a manned parking, like a morning 9 to evening 6, someone is sitting there and managing your bikes. And secured storage is, yeah, you have a room, you swipe your card, you lock your bike, and that's a secured storage. So we were asked to validate their decisions in the past. So we were asked that, okay, we opened two valets, 2 secured storages in the past, and using the data that you have right now, you tell us whether that was the right decision or not. And you're like, okay, we'll try. So when we tried, this is the campus map, and you can see like 2 valets and then 2 storages, secured storages. And we told them, with the data, but the numbers aren't, big in terms of, but I would say that with the data, we actually explained them that the first 2 that they launched in fall 2013, they weren't the great decisions because by the time they actually launched it, the crime went up and the more bikes were stolen. And in reverse, we actually got a validation from the urban planning team, and they mentioned that actually these are the 2 which are not even used. So we're like, okay, so that was more like a validation from the client on this. Then there was another 2 that they launched. And if you see, these are the ones where actually they made an impact because the whole crime, the time they launched it, went almost half. And so what we realized as a business understanding here, that as a concept of urban planning, if you really plan a bike, valet or a secured storage, anything, it's always the first layer of the circumference that works for anyone. Because the student is running for a class, and if you open a bike valet, which is one building next to it, they'll never park over there. They'll rather park it in open, but they'll never go beyond the first layer. And what we realized in the last slide, what you saw, they introduced the valet and the storage in the second layer, and that never worked for the campus. And in this specific case, you can see it's quite on a dead spot of where the exact crime is happening over there, and that worked. The utilization of these valets and the secured storages was at peak, and it worked for them. We said, yeah, you did a good job in this one, and again got an acknowledgement, yeah, usage is high, so we agree with this. Then the situation again, kept falling on because this was more of a conversational project and learning what the client has to say and then building on that. Then the client asked us that, okay, we have to come up with the next valet. Now you tell us where to open it. We have one in mind, but can you tell us using the data where we should come up with? So we said, okay, and to know that, it's not magic, it's again data, there are a set of rules have to be there for that. So for this one, we asked them, okay, give us a set of rules that would help you with the decision on where you would want to have the next valet. So the first rule was, so there is a concept of walk-only zone in campuses over here, what I've learned, where people cannot ride bike, they cannot use boards, and it's just a walk-only zone. So they said, the valet has to be in the circumference of the walk-only zone, so people park it and then come in the walk-only zone. Second rule was that valet shouldn't be near the existing valet or storages. Third rule was valet shouldn't be near the student housing, so we all had to see the student housing where they are. And the fourth was, the bike theft has to be on the higher side as compared to other areas. So these were the 4 rules we applied. And when we applied all these 4 rules, we had 3 buildings that met the criteria. One was Durham, another was Hayden, and the third was Lyceum. Now, Lyceum was a choice that they already selected and approved to build another valet. And when we showed them the analysis, we mentioned, look at the graph and the map over here. The map clearly articulates that Lyceum is nowhere close to the crime and other attributes. So we clearly mentioned with the analysis we did and the 4 rules and the constraint the client gave us, we said, I mean, Durham is your first place, and second may be Hayden, but Lyceum, if you've decided, that's going to be the third one. So maybe you have to prioritize. So this was the input, and they were like, oh, this is something else we did. I mean, we took approvals on, and the data has a different story than what the business made a decision in this case. So this was a follow-up of, the validation of a valet, and then after that, even planning, the next infrastructures that they have to put in the campus. Then, from here on, so what happened when we started talking to police? So they were like, okay, so this is what the insights you got us from the data we gave you. Now, how about you go out on a freestyle analytics board and tell us what more you can find for us? I'm like, okay, we'll try that, and because we wanted to test all the skills that we were gaining in the program, and wanted to try it out and find out what more we can get them. So when we went out, what we really did in this exercise, we went to Craigslist. We almost extracted the historical data from Craigslist in Arizona, and we started studying the bikes that sold and in the area and even around, and started looking for some odd patterns over there. So when we looked at this data, what we realized that some odd patterns were like, there were multiple bikes that were stolen from the same number, and in various cities across Arizona, various cities, they're like 100 mile, 150 mile, outside, and they're like, same person is selling the bike. So there was something odd in that when we tried asking the police department and other people who were knowledgeable about it. They said, how can a same person sell multiple bikes, same phone number in different cities around, all spread in Arizona and sometimes even outside? Little hard to believe. So that was the one odd trend we figured out. Then there were other odd trends. The same numbers, because we could also get to the level of the phone numbers also. So same person sometimes mentioned themselves as an owner, sometimes as a dealer. How is it possible? The same person can be owner, dealer, and that fluctuates very often. So this was, another odd pattern. So what we did, we actually captured the top few numbers where we found these people who could be behind these numbers could be potential criminals, and we submitted this list to the police department for the investigation. So this was more towards the Craigslist episode, that we could go out, fetch the data, make a meaning in terms of that could become an actionable insights for the police department. So that's around another level of insights that we could build for the police department. Then, Lake Havasu, I think it's a great spot. If you're in Arizona, you all should visit. It's well known for the London Bridge. And so we visited there, and we were like, okay, let's do some more study around what's happening in the market. And we found that, these bikes were really branded ones, and this guy was selling them for $10 each. I really wish I could have picked one, but I don't think it was ethical, so I had to drop the plan. So, but top-end bikes, $10 each. You all can imagine. Definitely, they aren't the genuine ones, right? So this was like another insight. So we told police, there's a guy selling like this in the free market. Catch it if you can. So that was more on the potential market. So we went around from the data available in Craigslist to another level of, doing like, looking at the market and seeing where the stolen bikes been sold. And then there was like a last segment where we were asked that help us out with the student opinion data also, like what students in the campus think about the whole situation right now. And we said, okay, let's try that. Now, the first question that we asked the whole, the audience and the sample we took, we asked them that how likely do you think your bike will be stolen when parked at the campus? And the outcome was like 60% of them said that yes, we think so. And this was like a real alarming situation when we showed it to the management. or administration, they're like, okay, that's on the higher side. And it's about, I mean, it has a lot to say even about on the safety side of, in terms of the students belonging in the campus. So this was taken very seriously, and that's why you see maybe, that's not good, thumbs down. But the second one, you may find it more, I would say, interesting, and even I found it very interesting. We asked them, okay, when your bike was stolen, it was locked where? And you can see that 50% locked it with U-lock, but still the bike was stolen. And again, I mean, it's like, we all call it like the devil is in the detail, and that's what we also figured out in this case. While the bike was locked, and that's one of the reasons I put a thumbs up and a thumbs down there, while the bike was locked in majority of the cases with a U-lock, but it wasn't locked in a way the U-lock is supposed to be used. A U-lock is generally supposed to be used with a frame in the bike, and most of the two students in a rush or in a hurry would put a U-lock in the tire. So, I mean, logically, your bike was stolen when it was in U-lock, but was the U-lock, used properly? And the answer is no. So that's where, I mean, we had a mixed opinion. We didn't know what to do about it, but still, you can see that I would say that one of the finding was that I mean, people who didn't lock it, definitely. I mean, I don't know what to say about that, but people, I mean, who use wire lock, definitely not safe. But U-lock is, I would say, still the safer. If used properly, was the finding on this one. So this was about, I mean, some of the public opinion that we looked for. Then we asked, one more interesting question. So we asked the students who were around in the campus. We asked them, okay, tell us about your thoughts about which buildings you think are the safest to park your bike, and what they thought versus the reality was completely opposite. So if I thought it was safe to park in this building, I mean, that wasn't the case. That's where most of the bikes were stolen. So their perception about knowing the safe zone wasn't right at all over there. So this was like, I mean, another additional finding over here. And then, I mean, when we started summarizing them, and while there were like a lot of other findings as well, but while when we started packaging and summarizing the findings and putting it up as recommendations for the stakeholders, so one thing we realized that when we looked at so for example, like the parking, the team that manages the parking, I mean, there are parking numbers that they are assigned to each parking slot. And then the police that manages the crime reports, I mean, there was no primary key between two data points. So we were like, okay, so one thing you really need to do is you need to have a unique key between both of your data sets to talk. And one of the challenge was here, one of the biggest challenge we faced here, that when we looked at the whole crime reports and the data, we had to center it around something. And so, for example, in this case of parking data, I mean, for example, every college or institution would keep changing the parking slots every week on every year, and based on the new needs that keep coming up. So if you see a parking slot number that was there last year or last year, you will not find it this year or next year, maybe. So the whole set, if I take the center point of managing the data as a parking spot number, that's not going to help me because that may not exist next year. So, I mean, so we did the whole structuring of the data around the parking spot, and then we realized, I mean, now the parking spots never manage, they do not exist anymore. So that's when, with the learning, what we decided that any theft or the crime that happens, it's always best to align it to a stationary object like a building. And that helped us out to know that, okay, where most of the crime happens in the parking spots. So the first one was around, okay, have a unique key. Then it was around, 45% student who did not even report. And if you still remember the trend we referred in the beginning about the fall and spring cycle, that's where most of the new students are coming in. So our suggestion was, put up an orientation while it's there, but put more rigor on the orientation where students are made aware of how effectively they manage the property that they own. Then we realized that does different parties, it's a very specific business context, like do parties talk to each other? We said at least, connect with each other more often. That's more on the governance, that's the point 4. Then there wasn't a dashboard, so we said maybe you could use this mechanism and hand it over some structures that they could use in future to measure that year on year is the crime going up or down, or how it's pursuing from there. And one on the sentiment side of opinions of the students around that, 60% people, students felt unsafe that their belongings can be stored in the campus. So that we recommended that, we need to do something about it. Maybe one of the ideas that the campus police was trying there was they were planning to put some dummy GPS bikes. So if it's stolen, they can track it and and they can catch it. So that was one interesting idea they started working on after we made this presentation. And then more cameras, target the Craigslist, the data, the way we looked at it, and the flea markets as well. And so then when the finally whole study summarized, some kind of acknowledgements did come from the chief of police in Arizona, over here, and so that's all. So. Questions? Yeah.
So did bike thieves go down?
From the time I've actually graduated, now I know this study has been pursued by the PhD students in the criminology department. So I have not been able to keep a track of it, but I hope it would have come down. Yeah.
Neeraj, one question. Since we are graduate students here, we would like to know, in this duration of your project, how many samples did you, how many students did you poll for your research? What was the duration of this project, and what are the softwares that you used for your research?
So if you look at the duration, so if I started my course in, I'll use this one. So I entered the course in August, and I already had the idea by the time, I think September, I had this idea that I'm going to work on this problem. August, October, you can see October to almost Jan, it took me to get the data, and it went on up to April, and maybe graduate, right? My program was a 9 months program and 33 credits, so you can imagine that 9 months, 33 credits, how important time management would be in running in this kind of study. That's the first part of it. So how long it went, there's some high-level timeline here. Now what kind of tools we used? So we used ArcGIS for the hotspot mapping you saw. We used Tableau. We used a bit of SPSS. Then we used one for the Craigslist data. We used a third-party tool which is a classified lead finder. We bought the license so we could pull all the Craigslist data, the historical data. So we used that, and some bit of Excel.
How big was your team?
That was important. So I couldn't have done it alone. So I actually got I actually got 3 more team members in this whole project, because honestly this wasn't a single man project, and it was a great support that we got from our professors who were like our guides in this, and then from the police we had a stakeholder, we had a stakeholder or advisor, I would say, another advisor from the parking and transit team who were very active in this whole project. So I would say a team, advisors, and be able to update them regularly that we are progressing and it's not just another fun project, was really worked out for us.
Thank you.
Does it answer? Yeah.
How structured was your data that you were working with from the police department? Did you have to crunch through it? Was it easily reviewable? Did you have to spend a lot of time cleaning it up?
I think yes, we had to, because at that time we were still learning the tools and technologies. So the data that I got from the police department, that just had some random addresses. So we literally had to, so if there were like thousands of records we had, and we had to take a sample of that, so we literally had to put all the addresses and extract the GPS coordinates of that and do the mapping, and then one version comes and there is another version supersedes, and we went through all those sort of data problems. So I would say the data, I would say it was a bad quality, and as there was no primary key between various things. So, but I think that's the reality of this profession, that once you have the real clean data, you can answer all these sort of business questions that your stakeholder may have. But that's where we make all the investments, and that works for us in long term.
Is the project published, or is it in the thesis?
Sorry?
Is your project published in a journal, or is it in the thesis?
I really wanted to do that, and honestly, I did make like a short paper, but honestly, I never got time after that when I moved on to my new role. So there are a lot of, I would say this whole project got a lot of media interaction. So this is if you do Google, you find a lot of the media published this project in Arizona in a local media. So this project was published, but I didn't take it to a formal route of research or a journal. I couldn't take that.
Yeah, my question is, after generating this report, what exactly did ASU do to try and minimize bicycle thefts?
So if you look at it, these are some of the areas what I know, they kicked off the work streams around the last page as I was showing you. So these are, what I know, that these all recommendations we made, many of these got translated into actionables or into some work streams that they assigned some police, some the parking in transit. So some of these recommendations were taken seriously, and these translated into business or actionable insights is what I know.
How similar do you feel like this research process was
where are you?
I'm sorry, I'm over here.
Okay.
How similar do you feel like this process was to solving a research data science problem in like real industry?
Okay, and so your question is that how related this problem is to the kind of real work we do now, or I do
Yeah,
right
like
now?
as like in IBM, when you're doing data science research work,
Yeah.
like how do you feel like this process kind of translates into your industry job?
I think I find it very similar, because the one I was mentioning, CRISP DM as one of the methodologies. I still use it in all my IBM projects, like the methodology I was showing you. When it comes to, there are many times when my clients would not know what is the problem they are facing. So I would still go with the approach of a consultant. I would still go and probe, ask them what is the problem, define it myself, and sometimes ask that, do you think this is the problem? And sometimes the client will say, yeah, okay, you figured out, this is the one. Because there are many times they do not know, and they would not know what is the problem, and can it really be solved with data. So but in our case, like the approach we followed, I think I still follow it, and it's working well so far. So it's similarities. I think it's the continuity of what I'm doing now.
If implemented nationwide, is there any revenue model for this project?
I know that one of my professors actually offered me, and he asked me that if you could take it a formal like a product or a prototype. Again, I haven't pursued that, but I think I had that option that one of my professors felt that this could be converted into a actual offering, and could help other universities as well. I don't know. I think I haven't thought about making money from this or anything so far, and not that I have time with my current job. So, but yeah, I didn't pursue it also.
All right. So if we have more questions, we can reach out to the speaker after the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Neeraj.